are listening to Next Level Thinking on St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9.
Welcome back, listeners. Before the break, we discussed happiness and what it is exactly. So there's various ideas of what happiness is. We have our own ideas of what happiness is. The Oxford Dictionary has a concept of what happiness is. But there's also this biological part to the story where there is our bodies have a certain chemical makeup in which we need certain hormones to create or decrease our happiness. Now, in this segment, we'll talk a little bit more about the idea of creating happiness. Over the last years, there has been a movement going on where people tend to take ownership of their happiness and say you got to look at the positive things. Well, the last episode, we also discussed about happiness, and I think we can safely say that it's not necessarily talking about the positive, right? We're coming back because does it really work to just see the glass half empty, half full instead?
Yeah, if only it was that easy, then you can just start thinking differently and then you're happy.
Right.
Okay, done. Right. No, it's not that easy. And also it's good to realize that the biological part has a big influence on it as well. I think you mentioned that in the first segment, Stephanie, that we talked about the chemicals, but also that people have certain levels that may differ from one person to another person. Sometimes, you can say it's kind of rooted in your DNA. They even say we have a happiness set point in a way. So you're born with a certain degree of happiness.
Okay, so some people are just happier than others.
Born happy.
Born happy. Yeah. Happy feet. Makes me think of Happy Feet. I'm sorry, that just came up. Just always had to move and dance. But I can imagine, not all the penguins were like that, but Happy Feet had happy feet.
He had happy feet.
Exactly.
He was born with that level of happiness.
Right. So that counts for us as humans as well. Not everyone has that same level of happiness initially. We don't start off at the same baseline.
No.
But you can improve it. You can
of course. It
get
doesn't
more happiness along the way.
Yeah, it doesn't define you completely. They say it's about, it determines for about 50% of what kind of level you're born with. It doesn't mean that defines it. Of course,
can
you
it
can
decrease as well?
Decrease over time, you mean?
Yeah, the happiness. So you start with the 50% of happiness, and then life starts. Going through difficult life events. Could that affect your level of happiness?
Yeah, then you're talking more about the environmental aspect. Mm-hmm. So, but we know that stress, for example, has an influence on our DNA. So DNA, what you're born with, the genes, the cells in your body, can be affected by stress and can change even. So epigenetics, that is that part, and then we can have situation or events change our DNA.
So stress actually changes our DNA makeup. So it changes the traits that we're born with.
Yeah.
And if I'm understanding correctly, so as San is saying, then even though we're born with a baseline of 50% happiness, because stress has such a big impact during our lives, it can decrease that level, that baseline to lower.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, like some people who went through traumatic events, sometimes you even see that generations later, still a certain sensitivity to, for example, some kind of sounds or some kind of feeling or something, that they're more easily scared by something or experience a higher range of stress. And that's because they're more sensitive. Their genes are more wired to be sensitive to danger. Because, for example, the grandmother experienced something. You see it sometimes generations on the certain stress levels.
Right.
And you can also translate that to happiness.
Right. But it can also be the other way around, I guess. If you're born with that 50% of happiness and you occur challenges in life because you already have that baseline, you can cope a little bit better. You're better able to see, I guess, that glass half full already.
Yeah, you have to see it like this: the tools that you're born with, and those tools can be affected by life in a positive and negative way. So you can strengthen the tools, or you can weaken the tools.
Right.
And so it's also about what you do with it.
And what you learn to do with it, because
you learn to do
you
with
have
it.
the environmental influence as well, and how you grow up, and what your parents teach you, and how to deal with situations. Developing your coping skills, that will have an effect on your happiness as well.
Yeah, if you look at the other 50% in that sense, they say 10% of that is something you have no influence on, the events that are happening in your life. And then 40% is about the goal things or the things that you do, the goal-oriented actions.
So we do have certain control over how happy we are or are not in our lives.
And that is something that research also told us, that those goal-oriented actions, that gives you a feeling of being in control in life, right? You have your goals set in life, you want to achieve things. If you go for that, that can make you feel happy as well.
Yeah, exactly. That can give you also happiness more, but also don't think about that negative life events or when something happens to you that will immediately decrease your happiness. Yeah, that might for the beginning, you might be in shock, it might be difficult to cope. But then later on, you might sometimes even grow from it. And you can see that's post-traumatic growth. But sometimes some researchers even say we kind of need the downfalls to get to the high parts of life. So we are human beings, are surprisingly resilient in a way. We kind of sometimes need also the difficult parts to be able to learn from it and actually reach higher levels in life.
And I guess if we wouldn't know what the downfalls are, how could we measure happiness if we don't have an opposite to it? Then, what would it be?
Yeah, you need some discomfort every now and then also to know what happiness is indeed. Because if you're all the time happy, then that's not the happiness really anymore, because that's just a permanent state. And then you're not talking about the true happiness. So then we're
in neutral again.
Then you're neutral. Then it becomes neutral. Yeah.
Right. So we can control our happiness by doing certain things. We discussed oxytocin in the previous segment, which is
you can start giving hugs.
You can start giving hugs. Okay, receiving hugs, I guess, is a good one as well.
Receiving hugs, it's about that physical contact moment. Yeah,
it actually has an effect on your immune system
as well. Okay,
yeah,
that's true. That's true.
Awesome. So you get a boost from hugging. Yeah. I think this is a very controversial point, because I think a lot of our listeners are like, well, I don't know. If I hug that person and they have a cold or a flu, that would really boost my my immune system. But I guess just the hugging, the feeling of happiness makes you less susceptible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but also being happy can boost your health.
Right.
And that's on your immune system, because we know that depression and stress is linked to, negatively impacting your immune system, and happiness is positively linked to feeling also better. So happiness is important for your quality of life. But indeed, also the hugging, but also feeling happy. When you feel happy, you're less inclined to develop a cold. Interesting, huh?
So hug before you get the cold.
Hug before you get the cold. Yeah, don't hug a person who has the cold.
Don't hug while you have the cold, because then it defeats the purpose. Got it.
It's more the preventive part of it. It's not the medicine. No.
Right. So in that sense, it does really matter what you do concerning happiness, right? There's certain things that you do have a certain control about your happiness in life and how you feel. And it's not just about feeling happy and all these happy things and good things happening to you. It's also about realizing that there's going to be downfalls, and those can strengthen you at times, and those can actually increase your happiness over time. Interesting. As we mentioned, happiness is kind of a state. It's a moment, and it changes. It fluctuates, and that's a good thing. Now, more about happiness in the following segment. Stay tuned at Government Radio 107.9.